Hey, you ever feel like you're scrolling through the internet and it's all just, well, wallpaper? Like nothing really grabs you anymore. You see a new video, maybe a piece of art, and instead of being wowed, you just kind of think, yeah, seen that remix a dozen times.
Right, that feeling of deja vu online.
Exactly. And if that sounds familiar to you, trust me, you are definitely not alone. There's this widespread sense that maybe the creative well is running a little dry.
Or at least the stuff that gets pushed to the top feels.
Yeah, pretty,
Yeah.
beige,
Yeah.
safe. So for this deep dive, we're tackling that very feeling. We've got a really insightful conversation to dig into that looks at why this might be happening, what's going on under the surface.
It's a great source for this.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It's fascinating, isn't it? That this feeling of creative stagnation isn't just like a vague sense of things being repetitive. The conversation we're looking at points to some pretty fundamental ways the whole digital landscape is set up that can maybe inadvertently lead to this.
Mm-hmm.
And the first big area to really dig into is this idea of algorithmic homogenization.
Right. So the platforms we all spend time on, they're driven by these algorithms. And basically, these things are designed to keep us engaged, right? Maximize clicks, time on site.
Precisely. Engagement is the key word.
Which often just means showing people more of what they've already liked or watched. It kind of creates this loop of familiarity.
Exactly. These algorithms are, well, they're incredibly good at optimizing for that existing engagement. They favor content that already has a track record, stuff people have liked, shared, commented on. But the unintended consequence is that truly novel ideas, things that haven't been seen before, they don't have that initial engagement data. So it's harder for them to break through.
It's like the algorithm creates these little echo chambers, almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Which, when you think about it, almost penalizes originality, doesn't it?
It can, yeah.
And if something doesn't fit neatly into a box the algorithm already knows, it's just less likely to get shown to people.
Right. So creators, and you can't blame them, might feel this pressure to, stick to what's safe, what's familiar, just to get noticed.
It's a bit of a creative cage, really.
It really can feel that way.
Yeah.
And that feeds directly into the next point.
Yeah.
Just the sheer oversaturation of content and this rapid fire recycling of trends.
Oh, yeah. The amount of stuff being uploaded every single minute is just mind-boggling.
It's a constant deluge, isn't it? A flood.
Totally overwhelming. You refresh your feed and boom, like a dozen new trends. But they often feel like slightly different takes on something from last week or even last month.
Mm-hmm. And any truly new ideas seem to just get drowned out in this constant noise of more the same.
Yeah, lost in the shuffle.
And the lifespan of these trends, it's become incredibly short. They blow up, then they vanish.
Yeah.
There's very little time for any real depth or, meaningful evolution.
Right.
In that kind of environment, creativity can sometimes feel less like innovation and more like just remixing whatever's hot right now.
Keeping up rather than breaking new ground. And then you layer on the money aspect. For a lot of creators, this isn't just a passion project. It's their job. It's how they pay the bills.
Absolutely. That introduces a whole other layer of pressure, doesn't it?
For sure. Pressure to make what sells.
Right. That increasing link between, let's say, art and income, it naturally leads to a preference for what seems commercially viable, safer bets.
Mm-hmm.
So individuals, studios, even big brands, they're often more likely to back projects that seem like a sure thing financially, which usually means sticking with formulas that worked before rather than, taking a leap on something really bold or unconventional.
So those artists or thinkers with really original perspectives, the ones who could push boundaries, they might get sidelined if they don't already have a big following.
Or if their ideas don't look immediately like something you can, easily monetize.
Yeah. It makes it tough for genuine innovation to really take root and flourish sometimes.
It does.
Yeah.
And, we also need to think about the wider context here. This feeling of maybe collective burnout.
Oh, definitely. Think about the last few years, the pandemic, global stuff, just the constant digital overload.
Yeah, the nonstop information, the notifications, it all adds up. It has a cumulative effect.
It's like everyone's running on maybe 60% battery, creatively speaking.
That's a good analogy.
People are tired, right? Attention spans feel shorter. Just getting through the day can feel like a win sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And when you're in that kind of, let's call it survival mode, finding the mental and emotional space to really, truly flourish creatively, that can feel like a huge ask, a luxury even.
Yeah, totally.
And that widespread fatigue, it can also make, let's say mediocre or low-effort content more appealing. There's a certain comfort in the familiar, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Stuff that doesn't demand much from you mentally, it can feel almost soothing sometimes because it's predictable.
You'd have to invest a lot.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like we're so overloaded that we just gravitate towards the easy stuff, the instantly recognizable, something simple, maybe even a little bit bland. It doesn't ask much of our attention or emotions.
You can just passively consume it. No heavy lifting required.
Right.
Which leads to this really interesting point from the source material we looked at. The listener's feeling about creating just for themselves. No expectation of anyone see it, no need to push it out there. They called it like a creativity bubble.
Yeah, I found that fascinating at first. Maybe it sounds a bit like opting out, withdrawing from the whole creative scene.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it was talked about in the conversation was actually really positive, almost like a healthy response, maybe even necessary, given all these pressures we've been discussing.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that this retreat, this kind of deliberate creation outside the usual metrics of success, likes, shares, views, it could actually be a really fertile ground for genuine innovation.
How so?
Well, when you're creating just for the sheer joy of it,
Right.
without the algorithm breathing down your neck, without worrying about engagement stats or how you're going to monetize it,
Yeah.
there's a real purity there.
Okay. Creativity for its own sake.
Exactly.
It's like getting back to why people create in the first place.
Yeah.
Because there's an urge inside, an idea to explore, not because you're trying to feed the machine or game the system.
Precisely. And that connects to another critical point.
Mhm.
This idea that so much of what we see online, even stuff that looks really authentic or raw,
Yeah.
is ultimately designed to do something else, to sell ads, push merch, build a following, get more engagement. It's like glorified ads, as the source put it, even if they're cleverly disguised.
Right. The source mentioned packaged vulnerability, where people share personal stuff, but it feels kind of curated, like a marketing tactic to build a brand and ultimately sell something.
Calculated authenticity. Authenticity as a commodity. It can feel a bit cynical sometimes.
Yeah.
But the flip side, the liberating part of seeing that, is when you choose to step outside that whole game. When you're not trying to turn every creative spark into optimized content for clicks and cash.
You get freedom.
You get enormous freedom. You're free to explore those weirder ideas, the slower ones, the deeper stuff that maybe wouldn't go viral or fit neatly into an ad campaign.
And maybe, just maybe, that kind of work, the stuff not driven by clicks or money, might end up being the most valuable in the long run.
It's possible. Precisely because it is genuine, because it's not sort of tainted by that constant need for external validation or financial return.
Interesting.
Which brings us to maybe the most strikingly honest part of the conversation we reviewed.
Okay.
The listener's comment about currently preferring to watch pornography.
Right. That was quite direct.
And the reasons given were specific. No ads, seeing real people, even acknowledging it might be staged. No social commentary, no subscriptions.
Yeah. And on the surface, that might seem like a very, specific and maybe surprising preference. But if you unpack it.
Exactly. If you unpack it, it really speaks volumes about this underlying desire for something. Straightforward, uncomplicated, free from all the layers of manipulation and, frankly, BS that can permeate other online content.
So it's less about the content itself and more about the experience of consuming it.
I think that's a key part of it, if we connect this to the bigger picture. The fact that adult content, in its current online form, feels like one of the last relatively pure forms of content is quite telling about the mainstream creative landscape.
Pure in what sense?
Well, think about it. Generally, fewer intrusive ads compared to, say, scrolling social media or many websites.
Sure.
A clearer understanding, usually, of what you're clicking on, and often a more direct transaction, if there is one, without the constant nagging to like, share, subscribe, join the community, buy the merch.
Right. No algorithmic guilt trips or fake engagement pressure.
Exactly. It's almost this ironic twist, isn't it? In a world obsessed with presenting this super curated, often heavily sanitized version of everything,
Yeah.
something as explicitly unfiltered as porn can, in a weird way, feel more honest.
Less pretense, more direct.
Yes. There's a lack of pretense, a directness that can be, well, surprisingly refreshing when everything else feels so managed and marketed.
Okay, I see that connection now.
And that honesty, that lack of layers, seems to be exactly what's feeling increasingly rare in so much mainstream content. The constant engagement demands, the push for subs, just feeling like you're always being sold something. It creates this real fatigue. So the listener's candid preference, it really highlights this deep craving just to consume something without all that baggage, without the pressure, without the manipulation.
So the big takeaway isn't really about porn specifically. It's using that preference as a symptom, maybe.
Exactly. A symptom of a wider craving for authenticity, for content that isn't primarily trying to game an algorithm or sell you something indirectly.
And maybe, just maybe, that creates an opening for individuals to push back.
Perhaps. To start creating those weird, unhinged, beautiful things again for no reason at all, as the source put it so well.
I love that phrase.
Me too. It's like a small act of rebellion, maybe. A reminder that, despite all these pressures, the machine didn't get all of us.
Yeah, a little pocket of resistance.
Mm-hmm. So just to kind of wrap up where we've been,
Yeah.
we've touched on how these algorithmic pressures can lead to, well, homogenization. Things looking the same.
Right, and the sheer volume of content, the endless trend recycling.
Yeah, the oversaturation. Then there's the impact of monetization, making creators maybe a bit more risk-averse.
Playing it safe.
And layered over all of that is this sense of collective burnout, just feeling tired and overloaded.
Which all feeds into this shift in what feels real, what feels engaging online.
Exactly. All these factors contribute.
And it brings us right back to where we started, that feeling you might have, that nagging sense that maybe creativity is a bit stuck or that you're seeing the same ideas over and over. Hopefully this deep dive into the conversation has maybe shed some light on why that feeling exists and shown you you're definitely not alone in feeling it.
It's a very shared experience right now, I think.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Maybe this is a good moment to just, pause and reflect on your own habits, how you consume content, maybe even how you create in light of all this.
Yeah, and that leads to a really interesting final thought for you to mull over.
Yeah.
What would truly authentic, truly engaging content actually look like in a world less dominated by these pressures? What would you create if there were no algorithms to please, no monetization game to play? What would that look like for you?